Shake your dreams from your hair. I'm already there, right beside you. So please, don't hide, just say I'll be there if it breaks, right beside you. Suddenly I know now how it feels. I no longer have to beg or steal. I can stand now on this higher ground, where love is just a sound. Where love is...
Good morning, everyone. Crystal here from Gecko Diva, and welcome to Coffee and Cresties. It's kind of nice listening to my song in the morning. Not gonna miss it because and realize how much my fingers have gotten really soft, and trying to play an instrument again is a little bit of a struggle. But yeah, and then I went and dyed my hair back the color it's supposed to be, so the red is gone. No more red. So we're back to dark hair. Brunette, I guess. My husband's very happy. He was missing my dark hair. he wasn't a fan of the red. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having an awesome Sunday. To my American friends, I hope you had an awesome Thanksgiving and an awesome Friday sale. It was pretty nuts this weekend, like seeing everyone, like, power to you. The amount of Black Friday sales and how there were a lot, and it was really nice, very refreshing to see how much I really participated, and the sales, man, it was going. There was a lot of gas weekend, which is very encouraging. Other breeders who are, where there was some in the market and stuff, how things were needing to kind of level out, and it seems like we're at a good place right now. So it's super exciting to see that coming to the tail end of the year and getting ready for the new year. It snowed yesterday here. We finally got snow. I wouldn't really call it much snow because it was just a little dusting. And we went and got trees. So we have 2 real trees in our house. We kind of went a little, go big or go home, and got 2 trees. So we're getting in the festive spirit and getting ready for Christmas and getting ready for Christmas shopping, which we're doing a little late this year because we're already December 1st. We're in December now. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's see who we got in the chat this morning. And we got Shauna in first. Good morning, Shauna. And she gave me little hearts. Thanks for coming in the chat. She gave a shout out to Richard, who's sitting in the back. And then we got Richard online here. Very excited to speak to Richard today. I know I had a chat with him yesterday. He's a wealth of knowledge on genetics, so it'll be a really fun chat today for sure. Cresty Millions in the house. Good morning. Erin in the house. Good morning. Making her coffee now. I know I'm cheating a little bit. I have tea. I've been kind of switching over to some tea lately. I need to get some more Nespresso pods for my Nespresso machine, and some of the other like creamers and stuff. So I'm out. My hubby's in the house. You guys are gonna see he's baby faced. He shaved the mustache off because we are December 1st, and I have to say, and the ladies in the house that are gonna listen to this know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't think it's fair that someone could just do one quick little thing and like take 10 years off of their appearance, because he just shaved his entire, his mustache, but his whole beard. He usually has a beard, right? And he looks like a kid again. Like he's naked faced, and now he took like 10-15 years off of him. It's not fair. HKD Geckos in the house. Good morning. We got Cassandra in the house. Good morning, Cassandra. And Fat Man's in the house. Morning. This is Richard's dream come true. He's on camera and in a chat. Oh, Chris, I'll leave it up to you to bring the dirty into the conversation. RTS is in the house. Good morning. We got a lot of people in the house this morning. Hey, Mark from the Gecko Room. Great podcast yesterday. I was listening, catching up on it this morning too while I was getting ready. AJ in the house. Good morning. And Cassandra saying, yeah, I don't even want to talk about snow. We got probably 3 feet in the last few days. Oh, I don't remember where you are, Cassandra, but I heard rumors that there were some places that were looking at getting like 6 feet of snow this weekend. So, I mean, 'tis the season, right? We're getting people would be excited for it because they'd want a white Christmas. So we'll see what happens. I think what we'll do is we'll pop into our tea time. Yes, before we pop in there, I agree. Fuck snow. I would definitely prefer to live somewhere warm and where I can feel my face in the wintertime because it sucks when it gets really cold. All right, for tea time today. Well, I'm sure those of you who have been following 15 Minutes of Lame have seen a lot of the reels that I've been putting out. I've been trying to pump something out every single day, whether it's, an endorsement, a funny collab, or just showing off the geckos and gecko content. I don't plan on slowing down. I wanted to give a huge shout out to everyone who's been supporting. I really appreciate it. I think I'm about like a little over 1,500 shy of first place. So I mean, it's been really inspiring to see like everyone really get together and help boost me up because I went up to 8% yesterday. So hopefully we can keep getting the community, the gecko community has been a huge help. Rally all our wonderful gecko breeders and hobbyists and caretakers, anyone wherever you are at within the gecko industry, and try to get a gecko person to beat out the ball python breeders in the contest would be pretty spectacular, and give me an opportunity to bring the belt maybe to Flora Fauna and kind of show it off, and everyone can come and check it out. But yeah, it's been very humbling, and it's an awesome experience so far. I love the fact that I'm having the ability to make a lot of connections with people, whether it's people that I already knew or people that I'm getting to know even better through this whole contest, and just the engagement and the amount of additional people that are following now, and the support just across all platforms, and seeing the shout outs and stuff. It's been really a positive feeling, and really nice to see everyone kind of come together. So thank you to everybody who has been supporting it, and let's keep this going. Yeah, Charlie is he's at 31% this morning. I didn't check this morning, so he went up again. Hopefully he didn't steal the percentage from me. But yeah, and yeah, I want some not 6 feet. What? Oh, the snow and the awesome endorsements. Yeah, so I would say if anyone who's listening to this, whether you're listening to it live or if you're catching the replay later on and you want to take part in this, I am 100% willing to do some fun collab videos and have you... Oh, that it's doing it again. Hold on. So I don't know what's going on with my camera. Just a second here. This happened. My audio went out last week, and now my camera is going out. There we go. I don't know. I did this last night too. Oh, we got it. So yeah, so anyone who wants to go and vote, 15 Minutes of Lame, Shauna just dropped it in the chat. You go to fatmannation.com and you click on vote now, and you just scroll and you vote for me. You can vote for me every single day up until the last day to vote's the 24th of December. So they announced the winner on the 25th, and there's also 3 judges as well. So the three judges being Courtney and Stephen from Leviathan, Shane from Small Town Exotics, and we got Antoine from High Desert Pythons. So they are also each worth 1 vote. So they make up the other 75% of the total. And Gerald is saying on multiple devices. So you can vote once a day, every day on multiple devices, unless you're using all the same thing on the same IP, then you're SOL. And thanks, Cassandra. I appreciate the support. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the Gecko Room and Gecko Nerd did their second episode of the Unbiased Gecko Talk yesterday on YouTube. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, they were talking about enclosures, best enclosure setup. Their discussion is very back and forth, where you have the ability to kind of give your 2 cents, and it's an unbiased chat. So you're discussing like different opinions, whether you agree or agree to disagree. I was catching up on it again this morning, because I came in a little late yesterday because I got held up on a phone call. But definitely go and check it out. It's awesome. I want to thank you both for giving me a shout out at the beginning for the 15 minutes of lame. And definitely you guys are doing a great job. I mean, it's tough to do these lives, right? and to be able to coordinate everything and all the different options that you have, to bring up like videos and screens and stuff. And like just now I lost my camera. I mean, it's real life and shit happens. But yeah, definitely go check it out. The other thing I came across this morning, which I thought was pretty awesome, is Robert Irwin went and did this really cool, like Calvin Klein style photo shoot and posted it on here, which was kind of neat. And he could probably have a whole other career as a Calvin Klein model. And does he ever look like his dad? So I just thought it was pretty neat. I wanted to share it because usually on his page, you're always seeing his animal photography and stuff. And I thought I'd post this for, the ladies and the guys who might like Robert Irwin. But it was kind of cool. If you don't follow him, go follow him. He's got some pretty cool content online as well. Yes, RTS, it's on YouTube. If you just look up Unbiased Gecko Talk, you should be able to find it. There's 2 episodes. I believe, Mark might correct me if I'm wrong, I think the idea was to kind of get one going similar to how they did their Instagram lives, where they're doing one every week. And it's topic related. So they were doing a call out in the last episode. If you have any topics that you want to see discussed, hit them up, send them the topic. They're more than willing to check it out and bring it up. And yeah, that's it for the tea today. I think without further ado, we're going to bring on our guest. So let's go. Good morning, Richard. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing great. So for those of you that are in the chat and don't know, Richard and I met through discussions in the chat on Fat Man videos. So we've been talking to each other quite a lot on like in the comments section, right? And giving little jabs here and there at Chris. And yesterday was the first time I met Richard in person and saw his face. So why don't we get started with, why don't you tell everybody about yourself, how long you've been working with Crested Geckos, and I guess where the name came up.
So what are we at? We will be going into my 7th year breeding in 2025.
Wow.
Well, no, it'll be 6th year breeding, 7th year with the geckos. I am honestly, the name, it was back when I first started, I had a show coming up, the first show I ever vended. It was this time of year, it was in December. And I needed a business name and had thought, had been thinking about it for days and days and days. And I'm like, well, what am I going to call myself? And the whole reason I got into the geckos is you're basically making living art, and the pairings and things like that is a creative thing. And I came up with the name and I've used it since, and people have a hard time pronouncing it. I mean, obviously Correlophus is the genus that Crested Geckos belong to. But that's how that came to be, and I've just stuck with it. So
Yeah. Well, and it goes nice with your logo too, because you have the little art palette, which
Right.
Chris is still in the chat will give you a hard time for, because he's always, oh, it's not art. He has a strong stance on that. But hey, I think the gecko itself is art, right? And you are being
Right.
creative because you're still deciding the pairings. So I will go against what he says in that, because at the end of the day, yes, the geckos are going to do what they're going to do, but you're still the mastermind behind which gecko to put with which gecko, and trying to create the most, visually appealing, I guess, offspring as
Right.
you can.
And for the longest time, I didn't have a logo. I just used my name, and I had, I came up with an idea, and I actually sketched it out, and contacted a couple of people, and it was a cheap logo. It didn't cost me a couple $100, and
Yeah.
I kind of said, this is what I want to do, and she came up with some sketches, and kind of I gave her free reign on what to, just come up with something. This is the idea. This is my sketch.
Yeah.
See what you can do. And she presented basically one draft of it, and I said, that looks perfect. Keep going. And that was that. And I've used it ever since. And I get compliments on it at shows because I have a big 8-foot tall, 10-foot wide, stretch fabric backdrop that I put behind tables.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
the logo is what it is, and then the backdrop is bright orange. My tablecloths are bright orange, and I tend to stick out in a crowd and stick out in a show.
Well,
So
orange is definitely a color that pops, right? You can see it from far. So yeah, it's good to use the bright colors. So when you got into it, so you started with Crested Geckos. That was the first, I guess, species you started working with?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the first project? Like, did you find that you kind of came in it and you didn't know what you were wanting to work with, or is there something specific that really drew you in?
No, when I was deciding what I was going to keep, it really came down to Crested Geckos and Leopard Geckos. And I looked at a lot of stuff. I'm trying to think. Morph Market was just in its infancy when I got in.
Okay.
But there was, I looked on Instagram and, other social media type stuff, and just seeing what was out there, do the Google search, Crested Gecko morphs, whatever. And the thing that really caught my eye was the Dalmatian stuff, the Super Dalmatian stuff.
Okay.
And the very first gecko I bought was a male Dalmatian. I still have him. He's the original. He's the first male that I used to breed. And I think I spent $125 or $130 or $40 on that gecko. Nothing incredibly fancy. It was the first one. And I had him, I bought him because I'm like, oh, I need, it's a pet, whatever. And then you start looking at it, and I'm like, well, I might as well get another one. And because I fell in love with him right away. I bought a female, and the male was a juvenile, and the female was an adult. And I bought her in February of would have been 2019. And then, no, that would have been 2018. I bought her in February 2018. And then did the whole quarantine thing. Both geckos were eating, they're pooping, they're doing their thing, everything a new keeper worries about.
Yeah.
And then that spring I put them together. I put them together, and like it was after I got back from, or no, because I quarantined them. I put them together in like May of that year,
Okay.
and kind of just left them alone. Everybody said, "Oh, don't leave the male in there too long, whatever." They were in a big enclosure. They seemed to be getting along, and I kind of left them the way they were. And I didn't. I got two eggs that I ended up finding because I had, dirt substrate, eco earth in the bottom of that enclosure, and I expected the signs of eggs being buried to be more obvious. But when I finally said, well, she's got to have eggs in there. She's got to have laid. And this is very beginning. I didn't know shit. And
Yeah.
I started digging around in the dirt, and I found a bunch of eggs. She had been laying pretty much 2 eggs roughly every 30 days. And most of them had rotted and molded because they were
Oh,
buried
no.
in the mostly wet substrate. But there were 2 eggs that were good. And going back to I didn't know shit, and you see the egg trays and using like Pangea hatch or something underneath them.
Yeah.
So that's what I decided to use because I bought the egg boxes. I'm like, I bought them from Lugardi was selling them at the time. It was basically a little egg box, and it had the little egg tray sized for like, gecko eggs. And the Pangea hatch I thought was plenty wet. Put the little tray in there, put the eggs on there, and I had those eggs failed. It got to like 90, 95 days, and I was incubating them at 73 degrees in an incubator. And I knew based on my research that they should hatch between 80 and 90 days at that temperature. So I checked the eggs, and the eggs looked good. They were calcified, but you could tell, like knowing what I know now, the eggs never swelled. Like you could tell there was not a lot going on inside the egg. At least that's what I thought. So I waited till like 120, 130 days. I don't remember what it was. And I ended up cutting the eggs open because I'm like, these aren't going to hatch. And I thought, well, maybe they're over calcified and all the things that you worry about when you first start with Crested Geckos, all the stuff you read. And I cut them open, and there was fully formed, developed, babies in those eggs.
Yeah.
I mean, they looked like, but they had died in the egg.
Oh.
And I decided, I talked to another local breeder. So really the next season was my first official season that I got eggs and they were fertile and I actually produced babies. But I talked to a local breeder. I told him what I was doing, and he goes, yeah, get rid of those stupid trays. He goes, whatever you use for your hatching media, he's like, just put them right on that media. And he goes, you can even bury them, a third to a halfway, and they'll be fine. And he's like, just make, he goes, use the Pangea hatch. It's pretty much idiot proof. If it's too dry, the color lightens up, and you just don't want standing water in your, whatever boxes you're using for the eggs.
And it's a trial and error. I mean, you learn something. You learn from that when you're new, right? Like for us, when we first started, we started with ball pythons, and the very first clutch that we had laid, we used just our regular well water, and we didn't even think anything of it. And then our eggs started getting, moldy and funky and stuff. And it was because of the bacteria and stuff that could be in the well water. So ever since then, we switched over to the bottled water, and we still had eggs that were viable from that. But you can see like how crazy it impacted the overall incubation of that clutch. And these are things that, unless you're finding it deep dive in some video and someone's mentioning it to you, it's not something that you necessarily think of. Oh, hey, maybe I should be careful with the type of water that I use, or, how I'm going to bury the eggs or put the eggs in. I'm going to pop up a banner because I almost forgot to do that for people who don't know where to go vote. So I'm going to bring that up at the bottom. And I bring
go vote. Gecko people need representation on this.
100%.
It's like we talked about last night. It's the 15 minutes of lame has always been ball python centric, and this year there's you with Crested Geckos. You've got the Harbins that are mostly known for their hog nose.
Yeah.
I think diversity in that contest with different species will make things bigger, make the contest bigger, and engage more of the community.
Well, it expands it broadens the, how many people it touches, right? At the end of the day.
Right.
Thanks, RTS. I appreciate it. And we have some new people in the house. We got Miami Art in the house. Welcome. Good morning. And Exotic World of Geckos in the house as well. Talking about like the substrate and trying to find eggs, that actually was a point that was brought up yesterday in the Unbiased Gecko Talk, where they were talking about like different setups for enclosures and stuff, and they were talking about bioactives. And I had at one point started switching over everything to bioactive until I started having some issues with some of my breeder females. So I had thought like for the most part, I was having no issues because I'd find the eggs and you can kind of see a little bit where they were digging it, and you knew a pattern. Like you're knowing they're going to lay the eggs every 30 days. They tend to lay them in the same spot. For the most part, all of mine were really good about using the lay boxes, so they weren't as difficult. But I did have one female who was using the lay boxes, and then she stopped, and I had thought her season was done. And I hadn't seen any more egg production from her, and I was really checking. But the substrate in like a bioactive, you're getting something a lot deeper, right? And even if you're looking under the enclosure, they might not have brought them all the way down. So one day I opened the enclosure and I'm seeing a little hatchling, and it had hatched out in the enclosure. So I'm like, okay, she buried eggs somewhere in here. And she ended up burying them under a piece of cork bark that was there specifically for the isopods to hide under,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably the worst place she could have laid the eggs because all the isopods are there. So the one egg was fine, but I guess once that hatched, the isopods went for the shell, and then they started going after the other egg because the other hatchling tried to come out but didn't quite make it, and that's when I found an egg with a full little skeleton of the other gecko, right? Whether or not it failed in the egg or it was something that happened, didn't hatch out properly, I don't know what happened. But those are kind of the things that can happen when you're using bioactive. So for all of them, I've switched over completely now to having them on. I use cocoa, so they're on Go for Cocoa. And a lot of, like, I have a couple males still on bioactives, but even some of the males, they don't like necessarily the bugs and the dirt, and they tend to want to hide in one corner. So I've done kind of a switch for them. What are you using for your setups? Like, are you bioactive as well, or no?
I have way too many geckos to do bioactive. I run adult geckos. So even animals that aren't breeding, adult females, they're in 66 quart sterilite tubs in rack systems. Adult males that aren't breeding are in the same thing. And then I keep basically anything from like 10 to 20 grams. They're in 27 quart sterilite tubs. In racks that I had built to hold those tubs with the lids, because I prefer to work with tubs with lids for the bigger geckos. All my hatchlings and up to 10 grams, they're in 6 quart tubs in racks. I use I was gonna say all my racks except for a couple when I first started that I had built or that I built myself, but the majority of my racks are sea serpent racks. I use the 45 tub 6 quart hatchling racks. I have dozens of them, and then I buy the 9 tub rack that sits on top for a lot of them. I'm lucky enough in my room because I have a dedicated building for these. I can actually stack 2 of the 45 tub racks on top of each other because my ceilings are high enough. But I need a ladder that, I have one of those. I have a ladder, basically you see at Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards. where they have the stair step ladder with on the wheels. That's what I use in my room so I can get to the top of the racks.
Yeah.
And I've got my 66 tub racks. Those were custom built. I had a bunch made by Jonathan at Olympian Exotics
Okay.
in Florida, and I picked them up at Tinley. And then I've had some made locally. So it's all, the only thing I do in the juveniles, and actually I'm transitioning over to Brace Exotics makes a rack. It's not exactly a 27 quart tub. It's a little bit smaller.
Okay.
I think they're like 22 or 24, and they don't have lids, but I bought a bunch of those at Tinley, the last couple Tinleys. So I've been using those because it gives, and I put like 10 to 15 gram geckos in those because I want to get away from, I think I'm going to get away from the 27 quart tub racks
Okay.
and go to these Brace Exotic ones because they it's a smaller footprint and I can get more of them in the space I have.
Yeah.
But the juveniles and anything that's not breeding, I
Mhm.
used Reptichip in the tubs just to help with the humidity.
Yeah.
And it's just I can put that in there and I dump that and put new cocoa or new Reptichip in there
Yeah.
probably every 3 to 4 weeks. Dump everything out, do a deep clean on the tub, refresh
Yeah.
the chip, put the animals back in.
Yeah, I don't hear many people using cocoa chip, like whether it's Repta chip or Go for Cocoa or any whatever brand you want to use. But I've heard people use cypress mulch, paper towel. Like there's a lot of different options, but I'm not sure if it's a really common substrate to use with geckos. I mean, we use it with the ball pythons, and I was like, oh, the humidity is really great with this, so let's give it a try. And my geckos thrive on them. Like they do really good. And even when I'm upgrading them to even a bigger enclosure, like my hatchlings, I'll put them on the cocoa, and I find like the chunks are big enough that they're still hunting their insects. They're not gonna swallow or eat any of the substrate. There's nothing really that gets into their mouth because it's pretty much chunks, right? I use the smaller chunks, but it still helps it. I have no shedding problems because it helps with the humidity. It doesn't get funky, like moldy or anything. You're only finding the little spots and you're kind of spot cleaning. But for the most part, it stays very clean and there's no smell. Like I only see benefits with using cocoa chip with geckos, to be honest, but it's not something that I hear a lot of people use.
And even like I have sub-adult or adult males and females in the 66 quart tubs that either are getting the year off, they haven't been paired yet, excuse me, whatever the reason is, and basically anything that's not breeding, that's not a baby,
Yeah.
and not an adult that's breeding, I've got Reptichip in the tubs.
Okay.
I control ambient temperature and ambient humidity in my rooms, and I don't need to use a substrate that holds the humidity because I'm controlling that ambient across the whole room.
Yeah.
But I do it for cleanup. The geckos seem fine on it. I have especially the geckos that I'm using it with, they'll bury themselves in the substrate.
They do, 100%. I'm always looking. They're like right at the bottom under it, eh?
And it's and then in the breeder tubs, like I go to Costco and it's a black food container. The bottom is black. It's got a clear lid. I just cut a hole in it big enough for a gecko to go through. I use a mixture of eco earth and sand in the lay boxes, and now I know I have a Google Sheets document that I track lay dates and when I find eggs, and when we're in laying season, I know, and I put the date that the last clutch was laid on the tub, so I know starting 25, 26, 27 days after that, I start checking for eggs again. I document production. I track average days between clutches across the entire collection with my females. I track egg production. I track fertility. I've got several years worth of data, and it helps me stay organized. And now what I've done this year, because I have so many females that can breed and so many males as well.
Yeah.
I'm running basically an A group and a B group. So traditionally this spring, I started pairing my A group geckos and got them going. And then at the same time, I was cooling the B group. So during peak laying season for the A group, the B group was basically being cooled and they weren't paired and they're not being bred. And then as egg production tapers off into this fall with the A group, I was bringing the B group up. So I'm going to get to the point where I have females breeding year round and I'll have eggs year round.
Okay.
It splits the workload instead of dealing with, it could be 150, 175 females that are breeding. And instead of doing that all at once, I'm splitting them up to split the workload.
Yeah,
but I always have eggs.
Consistent amount of geckos throughout the year, as opposed to having a sudden rush and a huge amount all at the same time, right?
Yep, and I've always got eggs. I'll always have hatchlings. I'll always have fresh stock for shows. And it's gonna let me, doing it in two different groups, it's gonna let me work, like I've got specific projects in each group. And it helps keep the animals separated. And so when it comes time where I'm producing animals, and once they're a breeding age, if I stuff that I'm keeping because I'm going to breed it in the future for these projects that I'm working on, I know I've got completely unrelated geckos because they were from two different groups of breedings, and it's going to help that way. And I ran into a problem. I've got one show left this year, and I've done 28. It'll be my 29th show. So earlier this year, I had an inventory problem. I didn't have enough geckos to sell at shows with the number of shows I had signed up for. So I had to buy stuff wholesale. I had to buy stuff from other breeders because I didn't have stuff to sell. Especially in the baby side. In my area, baby geckos sell crazy fast if they're priced right. And I've got customers that they'll buy 5 to 10 babies at a time for me at a show, and they'll do it, every couple of shows that I see them at. And it's nice because I know I can move those animals, and with what I'm working with and the genes I'm working with and trying to stack stuff on top of each other, you have to produce a lot of geckos to get what you want. Like, I want to produce, I'm really into the empty back project, the soft scale project. I want to put empty back and soft scale on top of lily white, which I've done. I had chances to hit super empty back, super soft lily whites this year. Whiffed on all of them. This next group, I've got more chances, and I love what empty back and soft scale does with lily, especially with the brighter colors, with the oranges and the reds and the yellows.
Yeah, and
Miami Art asks,
I'm doing like an empty back lily white project as well, but I'm looking to bring more like of a tangerine to it, and so I kind of took it a little bit of a different direction, right? Because my soft scale stuff I put into hypo, so that's what I work soft scale in. Miami Art came up with a question. When do you
it's
that are two groups. You need 2 different rooms. Okay, with different
it's 2 different rooms. Everybody, you can buy the digital timers that will control lights and whatever, but I'm old school. I've got actual mechanical timers because my dad's a retired electrician, so he installed mechanical timers for the rooms, and I basically have an A room and a B room for the breeders, and it's like right now my A room, they're getting about 9.5, 10 hours of lights on,
Okay.
and by Christmas time, first of the year, it'll be down to like 7.5 or 8, and the
Okay.
room won't get much more warmer than about 70 degrees.
Yeah.
And then I will start pairing geckos when the temperatures are the coolest and the light cycle is at the lowest. And then starting mid to late January, I ramp up the light cycle like 15 minutes every week or every 2 weeks, and slowly bring up the temperature because I have in-floor radiant heat in my rooms, so I control ambient temp with the floor.
Okay.
And it does a really good job. It's really stable. There's not a lot of fluctuations. So yeah, I run
Awesome.
and then the other room, I have another room that basically has hatchlings and juveniles in it. Hatchlings, juveniles, subadults. I wait typically until females are 3 before I breed now.
Okay.
So in that same room, there's dozens and dozens of 2.5-year-old females that,
Okay.
you know, they're not going to breed in 2025, but it'll breed in 2026.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
You got it
having,
dialed in.
what's that?
You got it really dialed in, right? All the different rooms and the setup.
Yeah, and having that and controlling ambient humidity and ambient temperature and the light cycle, it definitely, I believe it helps production. The geckos, they're getting what they need, and they produce well. Like this year in Group A, I averaged across the board with all the females, I averaged like 14 eggs per female.
Yeah. Wow.
My best layers, they gave me 16 or 18.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm in, females that are giving me 16 or 18 eggs in a season, they're probably going to get the next season off. And with the number of females I have now, I can do that. I feel like I can, even if it's a female that's important in a project, I can give her a year off because I've got other females in that project that can breed, and it's probably better for her to get a year off, especially if she's giving me 18 eggs.
Yeah, you're set up where you can actually really focus on the welfare of the animals, right? Where it's not so much, oh, I need to use this female, I need to breed because it has to advance my project. Where you're having the animals that you need, you have more than enough that you can allow a female to take a season off without it harming your production and your business, right?
Right, and I tend to hold back way more than I need to,
Okay.
but like I'm getting really good now.
A lot of people do that. Let's be honest.
I'm getting good at identifying empty back and soft scale out of the egg.
Okay.
And like the stuff that I'm producing now, I'm like, okay, it's a baby. It just came out of the egg, but I'm like, that's got to stick around until it's 15, 20 grams so I can see what it is.
Yeah.
And then decide what I'm going to do with it. So what I end up with is I have lots and lots of juvenile, 10 to 20 gram geckos getting into the subadult size geckos that I've held on to. And once they get to that size and I can think, okay, I've got a big group of geckos to choose from, what am I actually going to keep and what's going to get sold? And I feel like I can sell a nicer gecko, at a price that in my market will sell pretty quick, and I can feel good about it because I've got 2, 3, sometimes 10 more in that same project that are similar that I'm hanging on to. So I've really doing it with the volume that I'm doing. I'm able to sell geckos cheaper than most of the smaller breeders in this area. and I'm
Okay.
able to sell what I would think is a nicer gecko a little
Mhm.
bit cheaper than most people. And
Okay.
it is what it is, and there's nobody in Minnesota, I think, that's doing crested geckos on the scale that I'm doing.
Okay.
So
Let's take
it's
a look at
just
some of the geckos that you're working with because you sent me some pictures, eh? So you can talk to me about this project here.
so that is it's a great picture because the female on the bottom, her name is Pumpkin. She's fired up and she looks amazing, and she got that nice orange head. But the male in the back, um, that's Marigold. He should be yellow, but he's totally fired down there. But this
Okay.
is just the male Marigold. He's a yellow C2 quad stripe, really nice quad stripe. He's got a decent sized head. The female Pumpkin, she is from ACR. She is she's a soft scale quad stripe. She's got empty back in her, and she's got that orange head. And soft scale really brings out oranges in geckos, and that combination. I said there's the one hatchling picture I sent you is one of their offspring, and
Okay.
they're awesome. I mean, it's two pretty simple geckos, but she tends to throw a lot of soft scales, more than 50%. So
Okay.
that's why I keep breeding it, and then when I hit empty back soft scale with that pairing, it creates more geckos that are really nice quad stripes that tend to be really orange, and it's producing animals to add into other projects for me.
Yeah.
It's nothing fancy. You look at those. Some people look at the female and think, she's not that nice, but I really like that look. And she's got the genes. She's got the soft scale and she's got the empty back. Plus,
Yeah,
she's a
and at
quad
the end
stripe.
of the day, it's the the animals that you're using might not be the wow factor, but if they're producing something that you're finding is like outshining the parents, and
Yes.
that's something to take into consideration too when you're looking at pairings, right?
Yep. And I get really nice orange quad stripes from this pair, and I get some really nice yellow stuff. And because I track this and I have the data, about 80% of the offspring from this pair end up being female, which is
Okay.
kind of nice.
Wow.
So, and that's, eggs I incubate eggs in a sea serpent's incubator. I incubate at 73 degrees. And, it's just this particular pair, it produces a lot of females, and
Okay.
she throws a lot of soft scales, and I get a lot of empty backs out of it. And it's kind of, it feeds the other stuff,
It's working for you.
Right, right.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's one of the offspring.
Okay.
And that's an older picture. I'd have to actually find that gecko, but that thing it is so orange now,
Okay.
and it's such a clean quad stripe, and it's a soft scale, and it's a female, and it's exactly what I wanted to produce with that project, because
Okay.
when I breed that thing, it'll either be a soft scale empty back orange yellow based lily,
Okay.
or I'll take a dark base super empty back male and put to this, and because the dark base colors work really well with the oranges and the yellows and the reds,
Yeah.
and you end up with, usually it's a lot of really nice bright clean colors, but you'll end up with dark base geckos too. And because this gecko's empty back and you put a super empty back to her, you've got a
Yeah.
50% chance of making a super empty back.
I
And
know.
everything is going to be empty back. So, and
I know.
I love what empty back does with lily white. So,
I know there's some people, I don't know if they're in the chat today, but there were some people that do listen to this podcast that at times will have questions of like, what makes the brightest, cleanest reds or yellows or so on. And if you have questions, Richard might have the data because he
I
tracks everything.
I don't know about reds, but
Yeah,
with oranges and yellows,
yeah,
the mixing dark base into it or lavender base colors into it tends to, it's worked for me. And like I've got a lily white. She is the brightest orange and just the cleanest white. Basically, she's a quad striped lily, but her orange is so intense and the white is so clean. And the person I bought her from, Stacy at Root Scoots and Scales in Pennsylvania, that was I'm trying to remember what the pairing was, but it's not like you look at the geckos that produce this female and you think, well, how the hell did that happen? But
yeah.
it's combining the dark base color or a lavender base color with a color, and it really cleans up the color a lot.
Gotcha. Let's go to the next gecko here. So here we got a super empty.
Yep, that's just, you know, that's super empty back. That's also soft scale.
Mhm.
It's from ACR. That's actually ACR's picture. You know, it's the picture that was on the ad when I bought it. And people look at that gecko and they're like, eh. But to me, it's the genetics. It's a super empty back and it's a soft scale. And that, like that color gecko there with the super empty back and the dark base, you pair that to something that's orange or C2 or yellow, and you're gonna make really cool stuff, you know. So
Awesome.
that's I want to see, and what I want to do is I want to make like the best super empty back examples that I can, you know, because the super empty back blows out the pattern on the back, obviously, and it blows out the lateral pattern. And but that's why putting it into something like Lily White, you end up with, there's people that like their Lily Whites with full coverage. I like Lily Whites, especially if they're oranges or yellows. I like to see the base color. And if it really stands out, kind of that quad stripe morph, that's what I like. And that's what you can do with super empty back.
The other thing I find cool too with empty back in lilies, like if you put empty back in a phantom lily, I've noticed that my phantom lilies that hatch out with that, it actually brings up, like it eats away the pattern in the middle.
Yep.
But it brings up the laterals. So like the white on a phantom, you'll get a thicker, almost like a band of white on the side.
Right.
Which I thought was pretty neat because it really pops, right? Oh, and here we go again. My camera situation. It keeps doing this. I don't know why. Sorry, everyone.
And then I sent you another picture of, there's another super empty back. That's actually, that one there is
Okay.
an offspring of that male.
Okay. So it's very consistent.
So, and and that one, yeah, that one's a male, and that one's also soft scale.
Okay.
So, and you look at that and you're like, oh, it's a dark gecko. Not a lot going on there, but it's a really good example of a super empty back. And that's what that gene does. And being in the dark base, to me, that's a real powerful tool right there. It's a powerful animal. I mean, you know, that's a double visual recessive with a couple, you know, incomplete dominant genes in the ball python world. That's what that animal is there. That's the equivalent.
Thank you for explaining an equivalent to a ball python, because I was chatting with someone about it yesterday, and I was trying to, like, you know, especially with the 15 minutes of lame, trying to figure out how to compare certain gecko genetics to what ball python people would understand with projects that they're working with, right? So that's a great comparison. I might snip that later.
I mean, that's just, to me, I mean, it isn't, there's not two recessive genes there, but that's, in the gecko world, to me, that the only way that's more powerful is if you put Lily White into it, or if, you know, like if somebody, I want to know, what does a super empty back sable look like?
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. That's what intrigues me. You know, I mean, or, even super empty back cappuccinos. What's that going to do?
Yeah.
You know, it's, that's the fun part. The line breeding, not the selective breeding, the polygenic stuff, working with Triple X or like AJ's Frost line or any of these lines that have been refined by some of these breeders.
Yeah.
That stuff's cool too, but you have a general idea of what you're going to get when you pair a couple of Triple X animals together. You're
Yeah.
going to make more Triple X of varying quality. But with the genes like soft scale, empty back, lily white, now talking sable, exanthic, all these things that people are working with, we're just scratching the surface on what we can make and
Yeah.
what it can do and figuring out what it can do. And I think, like, I'd love to see somebody, I don't have any exanthics. I don't have any sables. I have a handful of frappuccinos now. I have a handful of cappuccinos. I've finally gotten into that. But now that people are making really nice cappuccinos, before
Yeah.
they look terrible, terrible structure, just a poop ground gecko, as I call them. But I'm going to probably buy some of that stuff and grow it up or get, buy juveniles or whatever, because I want to do stuff like take a super empty back, super soft scale and put it to a sable.
Yeah.
What does an empty back soft scale sable look like? That's what I want to do.
Well, and same page, because that's why I picked up an empty back cappuccino for the sole purpose of working it into the empty back and super empty back lily white project, right? To see how it would work with the fraps and so on, and how it interacts with that, and then on top of that, like the tangerine stuff. But yeah, it's exciting because there's so much unknown and room for, like, getting surprised
Right.
by how some of these, when you're stacking and you're adding more different like genetics together. No, we don't know how all of them are going to interact. Even like with with Pixel being so new, we don't know how Pixel is going to interact when you're incorporating it in different things, right? So it's
Right.
it brings a lot of excitement to projects, I find, and to breeding geckos in general.
And if you've got the space, really, that's what it comes down to, is you can buy some of these things and just put them together and be like, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't have the space to just, screw around with and not know what they're going to get. They're trying to produce animals for a specific intent, usually to sell them so they can keep doing what they're doing. And they don't have time to mess around with some of these other projects, and and they don't have the space. And I've got the space. I mean, I never have enough time for anything, but if I've got the space, I can mess around with it a little bit. But on the next couple slides, like, what I'm really into is the Dalmatian stuff. Well, see, and this is just another, people look at that and go, it's a yellow gecko. It's a yellow cream, but that's a C2 empty back soft scale, and it's a female. And you pair that with the previous gecko on the previous slide, a super empty back dark base. Like, you don't see, I haven't seen a lot of super empty back geckos that aren't dark base. Like, I want to make the gecko on the previous slide, I want to make a yellow version of that, because I think that would look awesome. And this animal here, it's a puzzle piece. It's a building block for, if I make a super soft scale, super empty back lily white, that's a dark base, this is an animal that I would pair that male to. It's that kind of thing. So, and it's the more he thinks that's hypo, it certainly could be. I'm sure I've got that floating around in my collection. But this is the kind of animal, if you really like yellow geckos, this might sell at a show, but other than that, this isn't something that people are going to want to produce on purpose, you
Yeah.
know, other than for mixing into some other project. But
Yeah.
I like, a simple, clean quad stripe, especially if it's a yellow. I love that animal.
Yeah.
It's just, and then you stack you stack all the other stuff on top of it, and that's what I like. And if you're going to do this and you're going to do it at any scale with a large number of animals, you better fucking like what you're working with.
Well, 100%.
Otherwise you're not going to want to do it.
Yeah, no, of course. So now we
But
get
yeah,
to the
this right here. So the top picture, that's a female I have. Her name is Valeria. The bottom picture is a gecko named Blotch. I'm either the third or the fourth owner of that gecko. I bought him from Megan at, what is it, MPB Geckos or MPB Cresties. She's got some of the most ridiculous red spot, red base Crested Geckos out there. She's got yellow base red spot Dalmatians now, and they're fucking awesome looking. But yeah, like if you look up on Instagram #BlotchTheGecko, you can find pictures of him that the other owners have produced or that the other owners have taken. And I can't remember, I have it written down, but I can't remember off the top of my head where he originally came from and who originally produced him.
Okay.
But that's one of the females that he's been paired to. He's put in a lot of work.
You have another picture here with another
Yep,
female.
so there's another pairing. That's a gecko that's a female that I produced. Her name is Naomi. She's that brick red super Dalmatian.
Yeah.
Nice structure. And paired with Blotch, you get, varying shades of red in your base color. And, you've got the black and red spots.
Yeah. I love the red spots. And I know who else does. Mark at the Gecko Room, because we've been talking red spot projects. But they're so cool. Like I love, especially when you get a thick red spot, right?
Yep. Yeah, the red ink spots. Megan's got some of those now too.
Yeah.
And this is the project that's been a pain in my ass since I started wanting to do this. So this is a gecko. His name is Brunei. I bought him at a Tinley from Creptiles, who have since disappeared out of the hobby. But it's a clean, he's fired down here, but that's a clean, it's a clean yellow base with the spots, which is what everybody wants. But I can't find a female that is clean enough to pair with him. So I'm at the point now where I may just completely abandon the yellow based Super Dalmatian project because I can't find the animals I want to work with to make what I want.
You're trying to find something that doesn't have any of that tigering and stuff in it.
Yeah,
right?
no tigering, no brindle, none of that dirty yellow, I want the female version of that animal. And it's like if it exists, they're stupid high priced, but that's what everybody's looking for. That's like the one animal that the Dalmatian people are looking for, and the people that have them don't sell them. And I even when you have two clean base animals, I just don't see people producing a lot of clean base yellow Dalmatians. There's always some brindling or tigering to them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's the yellow base project is something that's just been a pain in my ass since I decided I wanted to do it. And I've produced some really, really nice yellow Super Dalmatians, ink spots, confetti, stuff like that. But they've always got brindling, or they've always got, they're not clean. And I've produced some and I've sold them for, especially during COVID 2020, 2021. I mean, we're talking $2,500 to $4,000 geckos that I produced, and I was selling at those prices that you'd never be able to get $200 or $300 for now in this market because the base isn't clean,
Yeah.
So Yeah, that he's around because he's a really nice looking gecko, and when he fires up, like you can kind of see he's got that little bit darker yellow in spots, and that gets really intense yellow. And he's a neat gecko, and like I've paired him to some yellow stuff, and I haven't made what I want to make with him. So.
Yeah. Well, maybe your luck will change and you'll come across something. It's always going to be when you sell the gecko, though.
Right. And so this animal, this is an older picture, but it shows at that size. That gecko it's a male, and at that size he's about, I think he's just under 20 grams there.
Yeah.
This is the thing that this gecko represents first generation of this red base color, almost a bicolor to him. Confetti, potential ink spot, porthole, super Dalmatian project.
Yeah.
And he's just starting to get the portholes. And this animal here, earlier this year, I sold him. He was an adult, basically almost ready to breed. I sold him for $3,500 at a show.
Okay.
Because he was stunning, and I sold him because the person that wanted him bought him and another gecko from me as a pair, and it was they're going to start producing insane stuff immediately once they pair these two animals. But this was the first generation of this project that I'm working on, and I produced this gecko several years ago. It was one of the really first really nice geckos that I produced in the Dalmatian project. And like next year I'm producing the third generation of this. And I want to spread those portholes and thicken those portholes up and just put more spots on it. And I have what would be cousins and siblings to this that I've now, this same animal here with the portholes, I've now put red spot on it. So basically red spot, super Dalmatian, portholes, and the portholes are super white and clean.
That's awesome.
So
Well,
I really like that look. I've got some babies in my rack that I'm so excited to see what they grow up to be because everybody knows what's the gal in Texas that's known for her porthole project?
The Lotto line?
No, that's Gamus Geckos. It's the one like Weinstein Dress and a couple other geckos. That's the names of them.
Okay.
Oh, what the hell is her? I can't think of her name, but she's basically known for her porthole project.
If anyone knows in the comments, drop it in the comments.
I want to know. I want to do what she's done with the porthole stuff.
Okay.
I want to, that's what I want to do with this Dalmatian project. I want to grow those portholes the way she did on that project. And I'm getting there. It's having the white portholes on a Dalmatian on a red base like this. I really like the look. It's unique.
The only Dalmatian projects that I'm working on right now, it has portholes, confetti spot, trying to have more of the red spot, and then I have a yellow based lily with confetti on her as well. So that's kind of part of that project. But I don't really focus much on dowels. It's kind of like a little side project just because I love the look so much with the portholes and the whites and
And it's what I started with, and my whole when I first started breeding, this is the kind of animal that I wanted to produce. But what I quickly realized is you're hatching babies out of really nice parents that are going to develop tons of spots and look amazing as adults, but trying to sell those animals for more than a couple $100 at a show to somebody, they don't believe you that it's going to look like this as an adult. So that's why I've gotten into some of this other stuff. She's the one with the Lotto line.
Erin, that's the one with the Lotto line. There's another one that Richard is saying. Maybe if you remember, you can always put it in the comments after the podcast.
Yeah, I'm trying to
You can
think.
drop it in there.
Oh, I just can't remember her name. But yeah, and like this here, this is it's become a project now because I like what I've been producing. This is just this is a lavender based orange harlequin. Really an extreme harlequin.
Yeah.
And the pictures don't do this animal justice, and some of the other offspring I have of these, they are so orange. It's the most intense orange, and with that lavender base and a little bit of white on it, they're just incredible animals. And the two animals that produce, and this is where putting two animals together just to see
Yeah.
what you get, this is kind of what happens. The two animals that produce this, they're lavender base, really high coverage, extreme harlequins from JB's Cresties from Jen. The parents, they're named Bruce and Betty. I've got pictures of them on my Instagram. But that pairing produces these bright orange lavender base offspring when neither parent looks like that.
That's
But
crazy.
that's, when you're talking about pairings and doing that kind of thing, this is why you put goofy stuff together, just to see what you get.
Yeah.
And it's kind of known. I've talked to people and they say, yeah, when you pair two lavender based extreme harlequins together, sometimes you get the orange underground geckos. That's what it is. Erin just said it. Yep, that's her. Amazing porthole stuff. But anyway, this is just an example of most of the offspring from this Bruce and Betty pairing. This is what they come out as. Really intense orange. And it's geckos this size. These are the first things that get sold at shows because they just catch people's eyes. And
they're so vibrant.
I tend to, I realized I was selling these things as babies before they really developed the orange. I was selling them too small and too cheap. And, and then I realized this is what they're turning into. So I've held on to a lot of them, grown up to this size, and they sell for $250 to $350 at shows pretty easily. So, and that pair of geckos, I bought those two geckos from JB's Cresties Jen at a Show Me Reptile show. And it was what I liked because it was the lavender or dark base with a lot of coverage, and they caught my eye. But now that they produce these orange lavender based things, I really like that. So, and that's something that I'm doing more of, that to produce geckos specifically to sell at shows to keep, because at the scale I'm doing this, you got to produce stuff that sells so you can keep doing what you're doing, because it's a business for me.
I always ask this to everybody that comes on. Is there a project that you would like to be part of, or like that you'd like to kind of maybe get into, and maybe even expanding off of the ones that you're currently working with? Like, is there something, or are you pretty happy with what you have now?
Really, I want to put, like, it's making the super empty back, super soft scale, lily white stuff. It's, I'm gonna put soft scale into the Dalmatian project. In the last couple weeks, I've purchased geckos from ACR, Anthony, that they're soft scale Dalmatian stuff from his lines that he's been working with for 20 years now. Some of the original red based Dalmatian stuff, the original lineages from Dragon's Den and from Germany and Russia and other places, it's stuff he's still working with and refining, and he's added soft scale to it. And I like what soft scale does to red base, so I want to add soft scale to that super Dalmatian with red spots and portals.
That's awesome. That'd be exciting to see too, because soft scale really makes the colors pop, right? So it's
right. Yep, especially the reds, the yellows, and the oranges. And I want to get, I've got cappuccino stuff now. I've got frappuccino stuff now. And then stacking empty back and soft scale onto that stuff.
Cool.
And there's some of the stuff that's being done with the Frappuccinos. It's like, I want it, you see some of the really nice yellows and oranges and red Frappuccinos.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. And then throw soft scale and empty back on top of it.
That's awesome. We've hit over the hour mark now.
Yes, we're over our time limit.
I'm not cutting you off, but why don't you tell everybody where they can find you if they want to see the geckos that you are producing? Like, what platforms are you on?
So I'm kind of a hermit. I haven't posted on Instagram in over a year. I'm probably going to change that at some point here. You can find me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook under Creative Correlophus. You can send me a message, send me a DM, talk geckos, whatever. See what I've got available. It's next year, especially. Like I haven't had a gecko listed on Morph Market in a long time because I've done so well at shows this year, especially. But I've got a ton of stuff. I've got to take pictures. I got to do a bunch of stuff. And at some point in the next month or two, I'm going to upload and put a bunch of stuff on Morph Market. And I'm going to be more active on Instagram and, stuff like that. But I'm so busy. I work full time. I've got a giant reptile building. I've got thousands of animals I'm dealing with.
A lot.
It's a lot. And I would like to share with people what I'm doing and showing the stuff I'm working with. But at the same time, I'm doing it because I like it. And I really don't give a shit what anybody thinks. I don't need the dopamine hit from the likes on Instagram and Facebook.
You get the dopamine hit when it hatches out and you're like, yes, this is what I want.
Yeah, that's what gets me excited. I mean, I think I could sell a lot more geckos and, do a lot more other than my local market if I was more active like I used to be on Instagram and stuff like that. But I'm kind of happy with where I'm at. But with what I'm working with now and the number of animals I have, I've got to start going back to what I was doing, a year or two ago and being more active on Instagram and Morph Market and things like that. But, in doing podcasts like this, now people kind of know what I'm working with. If you're into any of the stuff that I'm working with and you're looking for animals, hit me up. I mean, I've got too many animals to take pictures of, but if you're looking for a super empty back, soft scale, whatever,
it's possible.
I probably got something I can find.
Yeah.
So, it's just social media is the necessary evil with this thing. And I got to get better at doing it. But it's the time. It's the time I'm spending on Instagram, posting pictures, doing that kind of thing. It's time I should be working with the animals. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It was an awesome chat, and it's really fun and exciting to see like how passionate you are about it. And it, like you said, it's an opportunity where people get to know you more too, who may have not had a chance to meet you or engage with you on Instagram or at an expo. And you're working with a lot of projects that I know a lot of other people are also interested in working with, right? So it's this is what this podcast is about, is to bring everyone kind of here to kind of showcase what you're working with and kind of get the community more aware of where we're all at and what we're doing, right?
And I attend every Tinley. I actually got to vend in October because people affected by the hurricanes couldn't make it. So I was actually there vending, but I'm at every Tinley. I'm the guy walking around double fisting beers. That's kind of my thing. And I've got, the gray silver hair here, and I stick out a little bit. So, and I talk to so many people and connect with so many people at shows like Tinley.
Yeah.
It's like, people stop me and go, hey, and because they know what I'm working with and they know what I'm doing. And, we end up having a 20 or 30-minute conversation about whatever. And, so I like the social part of this, the friends, the people I've met, the acquaintances, going to shows, hanging out. you know, that's what I love the most about this hobby. And, you know, doing stuff like this, we could talk for hours about
Oh, we
geckos and,
could.
you know,
Easily.
but you got stuff to do. I got stuff to do. We can
Yeah.
always do another one. I mean,
Yeah, we
I'm
can
always
definitely
down to
do a
talk.
part
So
2. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for popping on today, and I will see you backstage.
sounds good.
Okay, thanks. I'm over here just dancing to the jazz. Thanks everyone who joined live, and again for all the support for people who are going to catch this episode later. Again, if you haven't had a chance to vote, go to thefatmannation.com and go vote for your only gecko person in there, which is me. And let's try to bring up that percentage slowly but surely, but we're getting there. And have an awesome weekend, everybody. And I will definitely see you again next Sunday. And we're out. So see you and have a great week. Talk to you later.
Shake your dreams from your hair. I'm already there, right beside you.